What's up, everybody? Welcome to TeslaFix today. It's a very, I don't know, I have a good mood today. And we have somebody here who is also maybe in a good mood because Jim Farley did a great interview with, what was it called, Farzad?
Fully Charged
With
Show.
who? Fully Charged Show, that's right. And you heard his voice already. Farzad is here to join me because on my channel we discussed the competition very much, especially with Farzad. I always did that. So that's why here he is. Here's the man. Farzad is in the house to go with me through those interesting with those interesting topics because Farzad, we finally did it. We got him. We got him. We got the first time we really could see inside of the legacy automakers talking about the behind the scenes stuff we don't get a look at, actually, because they are very, very secretive, of course, because they don't want to lose market share and and the stock price should be high. And believe me, this thing Jim Farley did there will never happen with VW and with the German OEMs because, of course, we've heard it. Herbert Diess was vocal and you saw what the Germans did. So let's talk about this in this episode. So for that, maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself. People know you already from my channel, of course, because we share some followers, but just a small fraction, of course, but some we share. So yeah, but maybe you can talk about yourself, what you do right now, and then we're gonna start the episode.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me again. It's always so fun talking with you. I know we haven't talked in a while, so it's great to be back on the channel. Thank you so much for having me again. It's so for those that are not familiar, I've been doing this YouTube thing for about a year and a half. I cover mostly electric vehicles, and I'm starting to cover other stuff as well. But you know, I worked at Tesla for over 4 years. Have been in the field of business intelligence basically my whole career, so I'm a big data nerd, and I'm just finding this transition to electric vehicles super fascinating, and that's what my YouTube channel mainly focuses on. It's a lot of Tesla stuff, a lot of EV stuff, but I'm also starting to really delve into the broader auto market, especially in the US, and seeing sort of how it evolves over time. The Jim Farley interview just was, I think you nailed it. It was the first time ever, and perhaps the only time, we'll see how it pans out in the future, where a legacy automaker leader, so in this case Jim Farley, who's the CEO of Ford, came out and really just spoke very candidly and very openly about the challenges that legacy automakers have in their transition to electric vehicles. And this is extremely unusual, like you said, because most companies like to keep all that stuff in-house, like they want to keep it in their pocket. They don't really want to talk about what they're not good at. They only want to talk about what they are good at, so that, like you said, investors are happy and they have a good sort of like a positive mind share with the public, right? It's like, oh, they're all, Jim is coming out and talking about how Ford is bad at this or whatever. But I think, that was cool. That was really cool what you just did with the names. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
I just clicked it. I always just click them on and then,
So
you can do that too. It's StreamYard.
I know. I should figure out how to do that. Producer wife, come on. But I think, it was just so fascinating to see. And maybe what's happening now is that being candid and being honest and just telling it how it is might become a competitive advantage in the long term, right? Because I think people really value honesty. People really value when somebody's
authenticity.
Yeah, exactly. Authentic, also, vulnerable. These are like things that traditionally have been looked down upon as, say, like a marketing strategy.
As weakness,
As weakness, exactly. But I think there's so much strength in talking about the things that you're really facing that are difficult. Because put it this way, I think most people are quite smart. Like a huge majority of the population is very, very smart, and they can smell BS when they smell it, right? They
especially
know.
Today with the internet. I have to jump in for 1 second because in the internet era we can research everything nearly. Of course, sometimes the knowledge is a little bit watered down or something, but still BS comes onto the surface pretty fast. So you can't hide anything anymore. It's not as easy as playing a marketing campaign to get rid of problems. For example, in the newspaper, you run an ad and then suddenly everybody believes you again. It's not how it works anymore. So yeah, just wanted to add that. Please go on.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, I think you're 100% correct. And that has been, I think one of the reasons why there has been so much pushback from the public in the last few years, really ever since COVID happened. If you really think about it, the tone of, and I don't know if this is happening in Germany too, but in the US, I mean, the amount of skepticism from people is like through the roof. I've never seen it like this before. And rightly so, because a lot of people, I think, are just tired of generally corporations or industries or whatever just telling them things that are just like, you're like, but is that really it? Is that really what the thing, whatever. Like, you can talk about any topic you want as it pertains to this. So seeing Jim Farley come out and having this sort of tone and just saying it how it is and being vulnerable and being honest and being candid, there's so much strength in that. Now, the execution of it, like they always say, you can talk the talk, but you have to walk it. And I'm not saying Ford isn't walking it. I think they're very much walking it. And they were the first company, the legacy automaker, that opened their books up and broke out their divisions the correct way so that they're ready for the next decade or two of how their business will evolve. I think they are walking it, but the path is going to be extremely challenging. And having it confirmed. So in the Tesla investing community, the entire community has been sort of in tandem saying this is why a company like Tesla is going to perform so well, and this is how it's going to disrupt the competition, and this is how it's going to disrupt the legacy automakers. And that story was sort of very much dismissed by so many people. How can you say 100-year-old companies are just going to roll over and die? This is not how it works. They have the expertise, right? And now we have someone like a Jim Farley, not necessarily saying like, hey, we're going to die, but he's saying, these are our difficulties. It's like, yep. So kind of going down the list, and it's just awesome to see. And I think if Jim watches this, I think he should continue to do that candid interview style, which I think is just part of his DNA forever. And it's only going to do good things for Ford, because it's going to inspire the team internally to have the right mindset and set the right culture for Ford to really move into this decade and into the next one as successfully as they can. And so those are my thoughts. I mean, I don't know if you have anything there on top of it, but it's awesome. There's just so much to talk about when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think for me, for example, since he really opened up, it's the same with Herbert Diess. He was vocal, at least. And I mean, my sympathy for this guy just rose like tenfold when he started to really also acknowledge the competition, say, oh, wait a second, we can calculate this. We won't catch up to Tesla anymore. We talked about this. And he had this corporate talk at first, but then he suddenly changed and he said, oh, how about we invite this guy to our meeting in front of more than 100 managers, all the VW managers, like a whole room full of managers. It's way more than 100 managers there. And he told them how they produce the Model 3 times faster in 2021. I think it was around that, or the middle of 2020 or something. I don't know when it was exactly.
Last couple of years, yeah.
And but now we have Jim Farley, who at first they partner with Tesla now, which is a big move in my opinion. In my eyes, he just went bananas for me in the sense that he's right up there now for me, because he's admitting it and he's not full of BS anymore in some sense. Of course, he has to be a little bit more careful than Elon Musk in that sense, because they have a dealership network that they can't say something like, oh, we're going to do online orders. If they say this one day, they're going to get sued immediately. And of course, they have to be very careful. But Jim, so how is the rating for you? Yeah, exactly. The UAW, or how it's called. And on the sympathetic level, how many points did he raise for you from a scale from 1 to 10?
Huge. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think from the time that Jim started talking about the transition of Ford, from the second Jim said, "Hey, we're going to separate our books and we're going to allow the public to see the Ford Blue Model E and the commercial separate." From that point, I'm like, okay, so he's taking the right steps for a legacy automaker to change its culture, and it all starts with culture. And so from that standpoint, I'm like, okay, yeah, this guy, I mean, he gets it, right? I think that's what it really comes down to. He gets it. I think Volvo, or rather Polestar's leader, is kind of cut from the same cloth, I want to say. They're a much smaller company, but they recently did an interview with it was Monroe Podcasts, which everybody should check out. Monroe Podcasts, Monroe Live Podcast on YouTube, which is a podcast line.
I'm going to link it here now.
Yeah, please do. They interviewed the Polestar CEO, and that I thought was a very fascinating conversation. But I think Ford and Polestar are sort of two different types of companies, because Polestar is much more niche and very much luxury and environmentally focused type, company, whereas Ford is really trying, if you listen to what they're saying, what they're really trying to do is they're trying to grow their business with the people that they know best. And I don't know what this means in the next 5 to 10 years. My gut tells me that Ford's overall business will probably shrink from, say, from 4 million to maybe 2 million cars or less. But who knows? Their profitability in the long term might remain the same if they're able to really leverage software and autonomous and in-car experience and digital and all that stuff, right? So I don't know how it's going to impact their profitability. But net number of units, in my gut, I think it's going to go down. But at least they're prepared. At least they're preparing themselves to navigate through that. So for me, it's gone up quite a bit. I really respect Jim. I really like that he goes on Twitter and and he he talks with fans and people who are sort of following the story closely. And he's very when there's memes out there about him, he'll jump in and kind of say a couple of things. So I think he's doing it the right way. He's playing like he's playing it for the future. He's not playing to preserve the past. He's playing to advance forward into the future. And again, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to 100% hit it out of the park and they're going to be this massive company, because he himself talks about how difficult of a road this is going to be, but it's only going to get harder. And so so we'll see how it pans out. But if there's one company that's going to survive it from the legacy automakers, I think Ford is about as well positioned as you can be.
That's true. And I'm sorry that I was so distracted right now. I've just on the side, I've just put something up here, because this is the Kubla Ross curve of change, and you can really see that these are the states of when change is happening, where we are. And I think with Ford, they are in the I don't know, the experiment phase now, because they had their frustration, denial, shock, denial, frustration, depression, and now they're experimenting with, for example, partnering, and they're doing it right now, and just going out of the park and try to get back on track, really. So where do you think the other OEMs are positioned in that sense? Maybe we start with GM.
I would say Ford is in the decision phase. I would say they're that's because true. Because they broke their businesses down from just 1 to 3. I mean, that's about as big of a decision as you can make. It's like, hey, here's our EV segment, negative 102% margin. Boy, that is a decision. So that's true. I think they're past the experimental. The experimental for me was the Mach-E. They learned a lot. True.
That's absolutely.
It's all good. I mean, it's fine. I would say Ford is in decision. I think you want to do GM. I think GM is in frustration. I think GM is in frustration. Yeah.
So they just already moved from the denial phase? Yeah, they did, actually.
With the article where, Mary's like, Tesla's ahead. We're not going to have a profitable $30,000 to $40,000 car until maybe past this decade. So, that to me sounds like frustration. Like they were denying the leader of EVs. We're going to have the most cars,
exactly.
Blah, blah, blah.
That was the phase. Right? They had it. So, that's true.
I think so. Kia Hyundai, the Hyundai group, is probably an experimental phase. I would say, because they do have compelling electric vehicles. They just they need to up the range, and they need to really get on the NACS standard in the US, to really, I think, get into the decision phase and also break out their books. Like I would say every legacy automaker will reach the decision phase once they decide to break out their books, right? And then the integration phase is like, okay, let's make it freaking profitable. So this is the curve. But then the question becomes, for integration for these companies, are they ever going to go above zero? And that's the difficulty, because you just outlined here why this is so hard. You have to go through this insane sort of crazy up and down thing from a culture perspective with your staff and your leadership as a multi-billion-dollar company. That's hard enough already. And then once you get to the integration phase, it's not guaranteed that you will survive. So there are two giant tasks these folks have to go through. I don't know if you have any other car companies you want to throw out there.
Yeah, of course. I want to maybe maybe you can start with VW in your view, because this is also interesting for me. How do you think, where are they positioned?
I mean, I think maybe they're in the experimental phase. I mean, under Deese, they were definitely under the experimental phase, because he was bringing in your Elon Musk to talk to the management group. He was very openly saying, if we don't do this, we're dead, and then he's gone. So under the new leader, sad. Yeah, it is. So under the new leader, I'm not quite sure. It seems like they're a lot less public facing. Where do you think they are? I mean, you're much more familiar with VW.
So I'm not as how do you say overwhelmed what they are doing. So I think they were already in the decision phase with Herbert Diess, and they jumped back now to the experimental phase. I think, of course, the Carriot project was Herbert Diess's project, and it didn't work out. So he screwed up big time there, of course, because it was his decision to just throw 1,000 engineers on this problem. But I mean, Blume is for e-fuels, and they try really hard to really keep the floodgates open for e-fuels as well. But of course, I think VW group is committed for EVs now, that they can shift from that. But so I think they're much higher than the other OEMs, the German OEMs, I think. So they're right in the between experiment and decision phase, I think, I would say. Yeah.
So like Toyota, for example, they're in shock. They're in shock.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
they just replaced their CEO with a person who's been there for 30 years. So
that's true.
They're shocked. But now they have to go through the denial
even
phase.
in the denial. Yeah. I mean, that's true. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And BMW, what do you think where they are?
Well, they've had the i3, the i5, the i7. So they are, I mean, to me, it's weird, because BMW is very much experimenting with electric vehicles, but they're not really, I don't know, like it's clear that they're not going to be a mass market manufacturer in the long term. Yeah. They're going to be much more niche-y. So when you think about, in my opinion, when you think about BMW in the next 10 years, I think they're going to become an even smaller percent of the total market share of vehicles, to the point where they may be quite irrelevant, to be completely honest. So they might play in the super luxury space with $100,000 plus cars that offer some pretty stunning internal features. There was a video that MKBHD or Marcus Brownlee did on his autofocus channel where he reviewed, I think that was the i7. So BMW's newest electric luxury car. Yeah. And I mean, it looks sick. It was sick. Like the back seat was nuts. It has this giant screen that comes down, and it has a lot of features and whatnot. But it started at $115,000, right? So I think that's where BMW is going to play. But I would put them probably in experimental. They're probably experimental. Yeah. They were one of the earliest ones to come out with an EV of sorts. With the i3, which was their little one. But it didn't do well because it wasn't compelling enough. It didn't really check the boxes it needed to check. So that's how I think about them.
Yeah, I also think that they're in the experiment phase, but because they were claiming that, it's a pretty difficult topic for me, BMW, because they really said they want to reach in 2030. They want to have 50% EVs. Not even like they aren't as committed, but of course it's hard. It's difficult to change to change this so thoroughly or so fast. Of course, it's a tough game to really change it. But I would also say they're in the experiment phase, and Mercedes is a little bit higher. I think they're already in the planning phase or in the decision phase. Of course, they decided already to go this route, and so just a
are they going to break their books
segment.
Though? Are we going to see their electric vehicle? Are we going to see their electric vehicle margins and stuff, or no? With Mercedes,
I would say so, because they are like in the premium segment. Also, Porsche makes plus in the VW group, for example. Also, the sportier version of the Audi. There is an Audi. I'm not sure what was the naming scheme, but this Audi also is on the Porsche Taycan platform, actually. And so they share the platform, and this is their approach. But I think VW on the whole has really much a problem with integration, because they have problems with their own platforms. The MEB platform isn't enough for going further, and they really have troubles there. But
But they haven't decided to actually, like on their earnings reports, they haven't decided to say, hey, our electric vehicles are making this much margin. Like, are they actually going to do that though? Like, had they made an announcement to do that?
I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how their reporting actually is, because they're also publicly traded company. So there has to be something like this, I think. But how big their margins is, I'm not really sure.
Because Ford is really the only one that has done it. That's why I'm asking. Because I think
that could be.
Because I think until Volkswagen, and like, that's why I'm not super familiar with the Euro car brands like when it comes to that, right? But I would think that up until the point that they basically, if every automaker does what Ford did, then in my eyes, they're in the decision phase. But until then, you're just, it's obvious that you're trying to hide this thing, because you're not letting people look. You know, if you're not letting people look, you're not ready to show. That's as simple as that. You know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see this. But for this, I've brought some clips, because maybe we can talk about what's the difficulties with those OEMs. We've now put them into the place where they are located here. So I have a better one now, actually a better model there, where you can really see it. And it's interesting, I think, to put this into this model more and more, because this is that's a model of change, actually, how what stages people go through in the individual level, or also company level. I think this is a great model to put them there. I need to put pinpoints there also. I'm going to do that maybe someday, so we can follow this like a regular
This is
thing,
a good
maybe.
exercise.
Yeah.
Good exercise.
Yeah. So, but first we can look at the clips of Jim Farley, because I think there's the hands-on thing. We've heard what he said, and we're gonna go through those topics he was mentioning. Shout out here to Stephen Mark Ryan. I've just ripped his intro from his recent video and cut it into different pieces, because he already did a great job extracting the biggest points. So they're just like a few seconds long. We can look at them and then just talk about this topic that's going on. So let's
Shout
start
out to Stephen
with
Mark Ryan. He's playing Diablo 4, and I've been playing it obsessively for the last 5 days. So jump on my Discord, bro. Let's go.
Awesome. Let's start with this one.
What we've noticed commercially is that most of the established companies are failing in the EV side. They are selling and they're coming up with new models. But when you look at how much they invested, how big the plants were, how much capital they put at risk, and basically, you know, what customers are doing and buying, it's not panning out.
Yeah, so admission, that's a good thing. And I think he what's so interesting is that he is from the inside and he talks about this stuff. So this is in the industry, every CEO has to deal with this that he's dealing with, and we have a proof now, before we had speculation, before we compared the EV companies from outside, we had a glimpse into the inside of Tesla because Elon Musk is so vocal as a CEO. And also with people leaking stuff, and Tesla's such a hype company, you get more information out of them, and they're more open with their numbers and everything. But this was so fascinating to me to hear the first time. It's almost like our thesis is confirmed now. We are watching this 1 year, almost more than 1 year, and talk about this. I mean, we covered this like 1 year already. You even longer. So, what are your thoughts on what he said there?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. It's a confirmation that the thesis around legacy automakers struggling to get into the market will happen. Happened, happened. And it's fascinating to see the CEO of Ford, who will say things to benefit Ford, come out and at the same time confirm the Tesla thesis as it relates to legacy auto. But him saying that is not necessarily a bad thing for Ford. He's being candid, but Ford, and this, by him saying what he said, implies that Ford is ahead of that, right?
Yeah.
So basically the message is the folks that have been following Tesla very closely and have had this investing thesis that it will disrupt the legacy automakers was kind of confirmed. And then it's also confirmed that Ford is trying to be ahead of that, right? So Ford is trying to play in front of what just happened. So it's great. It's candid, but at the same time, it also doesn't paint Ford in a negative light. If anything, it paints Ford in a positive light. And this is where I think Jim's ability as of late to be candid and also benefit the Ford story is a win-win for their brand. Like if you read on comment sections or tweets and threads of like Ford as a brand, as an EV brand, and of course, like it's us creators on YouTube that cover the story very closely have been saying really good things about Jim and Ford and all this stuff. But I think it's shared by many that this is great for Ford and the Ford brand. And yeah, like I said, it confirms the rest of it as well. Yeah,
that's pretty accurate here. And I also think that this will have an impact on the industry because, for example, I think the partnership with Ford and Tesla on the charger will now, because in the US you have the different chargers. You have, wait a second, I have a chart there as well. So there are different chargers, of course, and you have the Tesla charger here in the middle in North America, and there's also this CCS adapters as well from Electrify America, of course, because that's VW owned and that's the European standard we have here. So because it's a universal plug, that's why the Tesla plug is a little bit more niche in that sense. That's why my research, like I did, came out. But it has many advantages, of course, and it's difficult to implement for the European market. I don't know why exactly, and I hope so. But now because of the standards, now that Ford is leaning towards Tesla because it's 50-50 in the US almost, or maybe even more Tesla. But now it's
plugs,
the number of plugs, and now it seems like they can really shift to the Tesla plug, which I think is the better solution because this plug is, of course, much smaller, much less it's much more convenient. It has something to do, I think, with the cooling as well, because Tesla does it differently. The plugs, my friend told me about this. He's an engineer, and he told me that at Tesla the cables are much longer inside. I don't know how. Even in the car, that it's much sturdier for the electricity to go through and everything. So that's how I understood it. I'm not an engineer, so sorry. Maybe somebody in the comment section can describe this.
Correct, Jan.
Yeah, I'm just a designer, so no science here. But still, so I think it's interesting for North America if they go to this standard. This would be awesome to implement this, and I hope that Europe gets this too. But I'm not as sure in Europe. But still, yeah. But I think what was happening there, back to my point, was that the industry now is shifting in that sense that Tesla partnering with Ford legitimizes them in front of the old guys more, or the legacy auto companies and everything, and also the more conservative types of people in the US, because they see, oh, look, they help Ford. They don't want to crush Ford. They are not like this foreign, strange entity from this South African guy coming here and ruining our Ford, our American brand. No, they don't want to crush them. They want to help them, actually. And now Jim Farley is open and vocal about the problems of the industry. And I think this will help people go forward as well and stop with the BS and just go like full force in the transition now. And I think now it's a huge turning point. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm after I'm done here, I have a live stream with Brandon from Car Questions Answered, who is one of the biggest YouTube channels like covering the auto market in the US, and he's very much on the camp where, he's not anti-EV or anything like that, but he's much more well-versed, let's say, in the non-EV camp and like the gas car. I believe he has a used auto dealership, and he just really understands that market extremely well.
Cool.
And so what I would love to pick his brain on is, if you look at the last, say, 6 months of what's happened with Tesla, with, the Ford partnership, Model Y, best-selling car in the world, the all the stuff with Twitter, like all this stuff that's happening. I wonder if he's noticed a sentiment change around the brand for people that are not familiar with Tesla, right? So that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to be picking his brain on. But I feel it. I feel it. I think the folks that have been resistant are going to be much less resistant now because of this partnership. Because of exactly what you said. I think there's a legitimization of Tesla as a car company and as a real player in the car market for people that, let's say, wouldn't traditionally consider Tesla as an option when they're shopping for a car. Because if Ford is working with them, then they must be a real car company. Ford's not just going to work with anybody, right? Yeah. Like the thing that comes to mind every time I think about that is like, I say that now, but then GM also decided to partner with Nikola, and what happened to Nikola, right? So, but we'll save that for a different day.
Yeah, that's so funny. Oh man. Yeah, the Nikola situation is hilarious.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but that's true. Yeah, I think it's such a good move, and especially Ford is such a traditional, like this is the traditional American car company.
It's an icon.
It's an icon. The Ford Model T was a huge success, and the company really did a great job surviving until now, and I think they will survive in the future as well. But so maybe we can transition now to a different topic, and the topic is more on the side of the model variety, because of course we have here a score from ICCT, which is an interesting hub where you find some calculations, and they arranged all these automakers into a list and everything, and they run some numbers. I'm not sure how the whole name is, but here you see the model variety, and Tesla doesn't really look good in that sense because they don't have as many models. Of course, we know that they are doing more the Apple approach, where they have a limited variety of products, product range, and just focus on the core of the product very much.
Can I ask you a quick question? So this is just electric vehicles, correct?
That's just electric vehicles, yeah.
Per brand. Okay.
So everything. Those are EV companies here on the left, or the EV side of the companies, and it's just about the model variety. So if they have small vehicles, and they're right here. But it was interesting what Jim Farley said about the model variety. Let's just say,
yeah, I love that.
Listen to what he said there.
I don't think you're going to see us like others, where we're going to be pounding our chest saying we have 27 electric models for all customers. No, that's not our strategy.
Yeah. So great that you said this, because of course you have to focus on one core product and develop it very thoroughly and very get into the nitty-gritty of this product, because it's so hard to, I mean, if you are past a point, and we feel it with, or see it with Tesla already, that I think the model variety now with the van, with the so-called van was in discussions. They talked about a van, and they had a van-shaped thing under a sheet still. And now with the improved Model 3 Highland, and then the $25,000 car, of course. So they expanding their product range now even more. And I think we're going to see more and more of that, but slow and steady and careful. That's the best way, because they already developed their core functionality of the cars. Their core product is already good enough to that they can shift focus now also to different segments now. But what do you think about this comment? So you already clapped.
Yeah. I mean, it's my take is that it's a direct shot at GM. You know, it's a direct shot at GM, and it's a direct shot at other car makers who have done this. And I was reading the comments. Somebody said that was a phenomenal Sandy Monroe impression by Jim Farley, you know, because you know how Sandy would sometimes, you know, like make fun of people saying stuff. It was just cut from the same. It was perfect. Shout out Jim Farley and Sandy Monroe. I think he's nailed it, and it really counters the Tesla. It's called the Tesla bear investing thesis, that Tesla will not be able to penetrate the market unless they have a bunch of models. And once they do that, their margins go away, because it's going to be impossible to have 10, 20%, whatever margins unless you have 27 models. And now you have the head of Ford saying that, basically mocking the strategy, like literally we're going to have to mocking the strategy. Okay. A longstanding executive in the auto segment, mocking that strategy that Tesla bear thesis folks have. Okay. So I think we're going to see this a lot more from every other automaker, because it's hard enough. Like you're saying, it's hard enough to make profit on one EV. You know, Ford very openly has shown us that just Ford F-150 Lightning and Mach-E is a beast to get profitable. And they're working on the next generation EVs that will be coming out here in the next couple of years. So imagine doing that with 27 models. With 27 models, while you have a gas car business that is that is going down, where the money-making business is going down, and then you're trying to lose more money. Like it's such a weird formula. So it does that, and then it also legitimizes, again, this is the trend here with Ford saying what they're saying with Jim Farley, is like we said, the legitimization of the Tesla strategy and how they're going about the product line of less products, less complexity, but ensure that you're maximizing the value for each one of those needs. So one car for large, or really right now they have two technically with the S and the X, but one car for the sedan, one car for the SUV, one car for the compact, exactly, one car for the pickup truck, one car for the van, one car for bananas performance that's going to blow everyone's mind, and then one product for like long range haul of 80,000 pounds gross, or whatever that number is. So it's great.
That's true.
It's been validated. This right here is now validated by a legacy automaker executive. And my guess is that every single other car company is going to mirror this. And then maybe in 30 years, we'll have complexity when it comes to models. But by then, every car is going to be able to drive itself. And the complexity is going to be inside of the vehicle and not outside. It's going to be more about what the internal of the car offers versus what the shape and form factor is from the outside. My guess. Yeah,
I agree totally with this. Absolutely. And it's interesting to see this also, the categories that are like Tesla is now tackling. For example, the ID Buzz from VW is very popular here in Germany. I really see that very often here, because the whole the whole van segment is pretty huge here, because most family people, of course, want space, and SUVs are one thing they're gonna buy, or a van especially. And I think now Tesla going into the van segment over there under the sheets with 300 million on the top right there is awesome. And I think also, I hope that this van will be on the more or less on the Cybertruck design platform. I think they're going to separate the utility cars or the bigger, heavier cars, in the sense that their van will be more Cybertruck-esque. I hope so. So a cyber van and a Cybertruck. And the $25,000 robotaxi, we don't know how it's going to look like, but I assume that it will look like closer to the Model 3 or something like this, like a smaller version of the Model 3. It just makes sense. But we don't know yet. So very exciting stuff to see. And I hope that, they're going to deliver that, because I'm going to order a cyber van right away because I have a family now. So I need a family van. I always looked around. I hope that the Cybertruck still, please, Elon Musk, give us a hint if the Cybertruck will be coming to Germany. I know that it's not probable, but still I hope so, because I have still my reservation.
I mean, what kind of, Germany, you guys are left-hand drive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why wouldn't the Cybertruck go to Germany?
Yeah, because of regulations in Germany, actually. Because
is it too big?
It's built as a tank. No, the size should be all right now, because they reduced the size a little bit. And because we also have Dodge Rams here and stuff like this on the streets, but very few of them. We have American imports here, which is possible. But it's about the softness of the car in the front. So I don't know why, but a Dodge Ram seems to be soft enough, but it could eat a human. So I don't know if this is more safe. I don't know. But it has to be, for pedestrian safety, it has to be a little bit softer. But as I saw that the front of the Cybertruck has like the hood, I have a video here on the front there. I hope that this part is more soft. If this is soft, and then maybe it's gonna get more approved in Germany. That's the problem. And since Germany is the hardest one on the regulations, whole Europe is following Germany in this sense. They won't decide anything. They just will follow Germany. With this, because we always take the smallest denominator of everybody here, and this is where the rules then will be applied more or less.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But let's see. If it gets approved, I'm going to import this thing immediately and going to rent it out for 1 year for €1,000 a day until it's... because every rapper will put this thing in the back side, and I'm from video production.
Hell
and
yeah.
I'm a little bit... connected with the rap scene, so
you get the ROI in like a week.
Yeah, if I can make it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about the next thing, because that's margins, of course. And Jim Farley said something very interesting about margins, so let's take a look.
We think basically that the car will be very difficult to make money on it. The F-150 Lightning was a complete pariah inside the company. Like, most people were like, why are we doing that? That's a really stupid project. I watched the company kind of like literally try to kill the project.
So 2 points here. One side is the margins. So it's he slightly admitted here. It's kind of hard to make money on those things. And so it looks like they're far from reaching any healthy margins. But they have to go through this valley of death almost, because on the other side, there is a van or a Ford product that is profitable, but they have to go through the valley of death. And the culture topic here is also it ties into this, because they have to have strong workers there that are going to go through this valley of death. And I think people will leave the company, and there will be a hardcore engineers that will stay, hopefully, and help them go through this. But what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's that's why what Jim and Ford are doing from a reporting perspective is so important for culture, because it drives accountability. You know, so if the culture, obviously Ford had, maybe let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they had a culture of folks trying to sabotage programs, like loosely. They're not really sabotaging. It's just they're not used to it. It's not part of their culture. To where now you've opened up the books, you're driving accountability, and you're saying, hey, this is the number. It needs to be positive. It can't stay negative forever. That's going to create change. And like you said, the ones that hate it will leave, and the ones that want to be part of it will stay. And it just goes back to those comments that Jim has made earlier about just the difficulty of transitioning and how much work they have to do to make this happen. It's just it's just another reconfirmation of this thought process. And they have a target of -8 or positive 8% net margin for the EV business by the end of 2026. But I'm curious if that will actually come to fruition. The only way I can see that happening is if they really get to their 2 million per unit, 2 million EVs sold per year target that they have. Now that's production capacity, but I think they actually have to produce those 2 million units per year and do so in a very efficient manner, with them being able to actually sell the products at a premium price versus their competition to be able to squeeze out a margin. So we'll see. They're laying out the groundwork. They're laying out the culture. Now it's just execution. But we both know execution is by far the hardest thing of this whole thing.
That's true.
You can do everything as much as you can, but if you're not executing, you're not executing.
That's absolutely true. And in Germany, we have a saying. I don't know if it's also in the US, but it's called "the fish stinks from its head," and this means like if Jim Farley isn't telling the truth or is more secretive with everything, then the culture of the company will follow this as well. So,
right.
But if he's open and if he's just putting accountability in front, like you said, then I think real change will happen. And I think this also really hits Ford right in the guts of the workers there, because they are proud to work at Ford. Of course, it's an American company. People are like it's very tied to patriotism a little bit. Like it's a true American company. And then we see those kind of numbers. That's embarrassing. We can't do this. So this is good, I think. And it's going to ignite some people to really step up and be more competitive as well, and really step up and say, okay, we're going to tackle this EV stuff. And we're going to, Tesla is helping us, but still we want to make it at least competing product. And then they're going to step it up, I think, which is awesome. Yeah,
I can't say I've heard that fish saying out here. I've heard, I use the tail wagging the dog a lot. So like, you have a dog and it has a tail. And so the one saying is, the tail shouldn't be wagging the dog should be wagging the tail, right? So like the thought process is the tail isn't the one that's moving the dog's the one that's moving the tail. So it's got to be, it's similar to what you're saying, but we're using a dog instead of the fish.
Okay, yeah.
And nothing stinks. It's just
and nothing stinks. That's true. Oh man, yeah. But I think they're on a good path, and I also think that they're gonna, make it. I hope, of course. And the next thing we're gonna talk about here is something that VW is also struggling very much, and every other competitor of Tesla, of Ford, and in the auto industry, and that's to scale batteries, actually. And this is pretty hard to do, and this is what Jim Farley said.
It's hard to scale battery plants. Like, I have to tell you, building the plant is the easy part. But actually building cells in high quality at high scale is much harder than we thought, even though we've been building stuff for 120 years.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder than we thought.
Yeah.
Next clip.
Yeah, it's just crazy, right? I think it's so great to hear finally about this, because Elon Musk talked about this stuff since 2006, okay? And he's shouting this into the forest and nobody's responding. He shouts, like, it's absolutely hilarious now to really hear this finally from the CEO. I mean, we knew that, and of course it's hard to do this, but how how the press even dumps on Tesla all the time for everything, and for what Twitter is doing and what Elon Musk said on Twitter, and that's we're not sympathetic with them anymore, and that's why we're gonna write hit pieces on Tesla on the whole. Now you hear something like this really gives them legitimacy, and it's very important. But what's your take on the battery?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I think about with those comments is, okay, so how many professional analysts came out and said that what Jim said is impossible, right? Oh, legacy automakers are just going to figure everything out. They're way bigger. You're telling me they can't figure it out?
Gordon Johnson.
There's many out there. him specifically. He's still saying it, which is very strange.
I know, it's so funny.
But we can talk about that.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
He blocked me because I retweeted a tweet at him from himself where he said that the Tesla Semi isn't possible. Like, it's not even like mechanically, it's not possible. And it was a video of the Semi, of course, driving around from the Frito-Lay truck. But he blocked me then, sadly. But I wish I had him on the podcast. But still, please go on.
He blocked me for reasons I don't even know, because I actually gave him props. I said, Gordon, you have really good fashion sense. I said, I really think he has great fashion sense. It looks great. And then a few days later I was blocked. I'm like, okay, it is what it is. I just think he likes. I think him specifically. I think he thinks that the Tesla retail investing community is obnoxious and doesn't know what it's talking about, and we're noise, and that he's trying to block out the noise and just focus on signal. But I'll leave it there. But I think the fact that Jim has come out and said what he said makes a lot of the Tesla bear argument the weakest it's ever been, by far.
It's true.
The weakest it's ever been. And so now Tesla bears are going to have to figure out, and when I say bears, for those that are not familiar, the Tesla bear is basically a person who would invest against Tesla, or they are expecting the stock price to go down for Tesla. That's what a Tesla bears go in hibernation. That's why the term bear is used. Whereas bull is like aggressive and going up, and exactly.
Yeah.
So the Tesla bear argument has never been weaker. And if you're a bear who has the argument of Tesla is not going to do well because of multiple models, they don't offer multiple models. They're not going to do well because legacy automakers are going to be able to ramp faster because they have the expertise. They're not going to do well because they don't have anything unique that they're doing from a charging or battery or infotainment perspective, so on and so forth. They're not going to do well because every automaker is going to be able to match their margins. They're not going to do well because every automaker is going to be able to ramp faster. Okay? Like, you should not be in that profession anymore. If you're still parroting those lines right now, you are not good at your job. And so I hope that is obvious for people that follow that storyline. And this is not, I'm not trying to attack anyone personally. I'm just saying that it's obvious now that those folks are wrong. And so if you're going to be a Tesla bear, focus on other things. Like, those arguments should be dead. Try to find other weaknesses. I mean, it's good. It's good to have people that are on the other side identifying these things, but if you're still parroting these lines, you should not be taken seriously.
That's a true statement. So absolutely, I totally agree there. Yeah, sorry guys. It's the truth. Yeah, sadly, you're absolutely right. I think that's because I think also this now shows you in the stock. The stock is pumping right now pretty hard, and you can really see that. I think all those. I love The Office as well.
I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, okay. But I also have always to say, just like in The Office, the boss there. Yeah. So but now I'm distracted a little bit, but still, I'm going to go back. No problem. No worries. I love this joke. So
you're talking about pumping really hard.
Yeah, exactly.
You were.
The stock is going. Okay, I'm not even going there. So the stock is getting higher and higher for 20.
420, very good.
Yeah. I think also with the interview of Jim Farley and what Mary Barra is now admitting and stuff like this, I think now because it's the old guys, the legacy guys, now it's more legitimate. Oh, wait a second, there is something with Tesla, because Ford wouldn't have partnered with Tesla because they are legitimate. So why are they partnering with them? That gives them so much legitimacy. And now, even so that Elon Musk talked about this like ages ago, like decades ago, that they don't want to crush competition. They want to help them. They open up their patents and everything is already set. But this really shows them. I mean, for us, it's just normal. Of course, they're going to partner with Tesla. Hopefully, the smart ones will do this. But now they are doing it. And that's why I think also the stock will go up. No financial advice at this point, of course. I'm just an idiot from Germany who is a designer who talks about Tesla, but still.
I thought Germany had no idiots. What the hell?
Yeah, sadly, I'm one of them. Yeah. But what are your thoughts on the whole, on the macro? What do you see with the interview and everything, like in this sense?
Yeah, you mean like a macro from like economic perspective and how the stock is performing?
Yeah, exactly, from the stock and the stock performance, maybe. And
yeah, I mean, again, not financial advice. So yeah. I think it's been interesting watching the stock market have a pretty aggressive rally here for the last few weeks. I think there is a lot of optimism around perhaps the economy being stronger than what a lot of people thought was going to be, that the Fed didn't wreck the economy as much as people thought. I wonder how much of there's a psychological effect going on right now with people that they're carrying record debt, record household debt, record credit card debt, but they're still spending in a lot of places. However, I will say that anecdotally speaking, if I go out, so I live in the Austin, Texas area. If I go out, I'm noticing more and more slowdowns. So we have property and we just rented ours out recently to a new tenant, and I didn't get the rent that I was expecting to based on where the market was heading. It was less, and so that was it was still more than when we first bought the house, which was in 21. It was still, we were able to charge more than that, but it wasn't as much as I thought. So that was one very small data set. Then I noticed the housing market around me has slowed down quite a bit versus last year, but last year was completely bananas before the Fed started raising rates. So you can't even use that as a comparison. But then I go to the barber shop, and my barber who owns the store says, I'm noticing less people coming in. I'm noticing less people are paying for haircuts. I'm noticing more and more people are talking about not being able to pay their bills, right? We went to the mall this past weekend on Sunday, and there was not a lot of people there. I was expecting the mall to be packed, but there wasn't that many people out and shopping and about. But then you talk about vacation spots, packed. You think about traveling in a plane, packed. You talk about airports, packed. So it looks like there's some sort of rotation happening, at least in the United States, where certain folks are not doing well and certain folks are doing well. And then you have companies, a lot of tech companies have been laying people off, but then the service economy and if I go to every McDonald's or every store, every coffee shop, they're all trying to hire people. So there's clearly a transition happening in the economy. And then you sort of contrast that with someone like an Elon Musk coming out and saying that he expects the next 12 months to be very challenging from an economic standpoint. And you put that next to what the overall economy has been doing. That tells me that Elon has insight into something in the supply chain that's giving him red flags about what's going to happen, right? So it's very forward-looking, but we're not seeing we're not seeing that in the stock market, and I'm not seeing that in airports, and I'm not seeing that in vacation spots, and I really think for those that are making enough and have secured enough job, I think folks like that are willing to just spend because they were stuck in the house for say 2 years because of COVID.
Yeah.
And they're like, I am not going to freaking wait for an economic collapse. I'm just going to live my life because I'm sick and tired of being stuck at home. I have a renewed sense of being a human and what it means to be out there and like live my life. So I'm just going to do that. And I'll figure it out. You know, so I think there's that little bit of psychology going on that's carrying the economy forward. So, and I don't know what that's a weird place to be because to try and predict things, you're trying to be scientific, but the economy is a human creation, and humans are anything but scientific. We're a bunch of freaking morons.
Emotional and everything.
So very emotional, and we make decisions that are not logical. So who knows? I mean, the next 5 years could be the biggest boom in the history of the economy, while every single sign is out there saying collapse, collapse, collapse. And people are like, we don't care. We're going to keep spending. So we'll see. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, thank you very much for this segue to the financial market as well, because I think it's very important to put everything in context with the rally going on with the stock and a little bit. So we went a little off the path, but I still think that's very valuable here, because this ties also in growth, of course. Will a car company grow? And this ties back to Tesla again. If they can survive a downturn, and maybe we have a downturn in the economy in 3 years or 2 years, we don't know. But that's very important. And also there's one topic, of course, that's also very important, because we've heard that I think hardware will be less and less important. It's more about what's inside of the car, like you've said before in the beginning of the episode. So this means, of course, software. And Jim Farley also said something very interesting about software, which gives us a little hint again, also what is going on with VW, for example.
Car companies haven't written software like this.
Yeah.
Ever. They've never written software. So we're literally writing how the vehicle operates, the software to operate the vehicle for the first time ever.
That's a pretty interesting point. And he also took it a little further than this. He talked about that they have multiple suppliers of software parts. For example, for example, how you adjust your seat is from Bosch software, and they have to integrate that to their system. And Bosch isn't the only supplier of software. They have more than 150 suppliers of software for every warn signal, for every maps, the infotainment system as well. And if they want to make changes, that's what he also said there, they have to get approval from the software company. And guess how an update will work. That's why even the Jaguar I-Pace, which was a very popular EV in Europe as well, it didn't have updates since 4 years or something like this. Like, it's ridiculous. And Tesla is updating like almost weekly. But maybe you could want to talk about software and what he said here. It was pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's interesting about his commentary is that, you know, folks from Monroe have been saying this for a long time, and they were highlighting this as a weakness, you know. And it was, what's doubly fascinating is I had Corey Steuben from Monroe on my channel the last week of May 31st, I think it was, or 30th. And he talked about that specific thing while I was asking him a question around, you know, the supercharging partnership between Ford and Tesla and what else they could get into. And Corey highlighted the software sort of partnership after Elon had a tweet saying, hey, we're willing to, you know, work with people in whatever they need. You know, we're willing to be helpful in whatever way we can. So it's, again, a confirmation that when you're thinking about a car, which Jim himself described as not just a point-to-point machine with a battery and a motor, that it's everything else that comes in the car, right? It's the space you freed up, the digital stuff you can do, the internals of the car, the digital aspect of the interface between the person and the car. That's what really makes an electric vehicle an electric vehicle. The vehicle to grid, you know, the running generator anywhere you go. Like, you can do so much of it more than just point A to point B. That's where the real value proposition of an electric vehicle is. And software is a huge variable, and like giant variable in that. And for a car company to be successful and to be differentiated from every other competitor, they're going to need to bring that stuff in-house. And automakers, like he said, have never done this before, ever.
Never.
They don't have the expertise, ever. And now I think it really should start to make sense for folks that maybe haven't been following the story closely. I think the way I would think about it is, there is a reason why Tesla has been able to achieve such a huge lead, is because they started from scratch with a software mentality. From the very beginning, a software mentality where the cars were able to be updated over the air. And they weren't reliant on the supplier base to dictate what they could and couldn't do. They decided what is the optimal thing in the car, and they built the car from that perspective. And what Ford has to work on now, which they're clearly doing, is they have to unwind that over-reliance on the supplier base to that dictates how they should build a car, and instead bring that expertise internally, and they decide how to move forward with that design. So it's a brilliant decision by Jim and Ford, and it's a very difficult decision. And what I suspect is that the larger you are, the harder it is to put this change in place. And the slower you are, it makes that even like exponentially tougher. And that's why a company like a Toyota, I truly am shuddering to think how bad of a fall from grace that company is going to have in the next decade. I mean, I think the last thing I want to see is a failing Toyota, because I know that's a pride and joy. I mean, it's such a amazing company, long-standing company, a Japanese icon, right? But
especially in the US market, of course, they have like many Toyotas in the US. They really penetrated the market there. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think they will probably be hit the worst from this whole thing. They stand to lose the most because they have the largest market share, and they're taking that market share with little to no preparation for what's about to come. They just made a move to try and go to the next generation of the company, and it seems like they just torn down a Tesla Model Y, and they just gave Tesla props for how state-of-the-art beautiful design it is. And I'm like, oh boy, okay. So you're that far behind. Okay. So we'll see. I could be wrong. Listen, I would love to be proven wrong, but you don't just only need the expertise and the decision. You need the culture. Yeah. And I don't think Toyota's culture fits with the speed and knowledge that's needed, know-how that's needed to make that happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the only chance that more or less Toyota has in that sense is partnering with Sony, but like hardcore, maybe, yeah. And on the other hand, we just a small disclaimer: if you want to tear down a Model Y, just buy the Teardown Titan analysis that, of course, Sandy Munro always sells and puts out for the industry, so they don't have to tear it down because you already teared it out. But still, you gotta save a lot of money then. You don't have to go through all those Model Ys.
Should be going on YouTube.
yeah. Or watch Farzad and Sandy Munro and all these, like you've had Corey on very, very much, which is pretty interesting. But still, okay, back to the topic. I just wanted to point out that, for example, what's interesting, the development is like CARIAD was the move to try to put it inside of the company from the VW perspective here. And now they are shifting to China, and they ask, please, Chinese companies, help us. Huawei, help us develop this. And this is a thing on its own that's pretty interesting, but because before VW really wanted to let the software stay in Europe, but now it seems like they're gonna get help from the Chinese companies there, the software companies, and let's see how it works, because this isn't internally. So still it's outsourced, and let's see how that's going to play out. But I'm not seeing anything fruitful in that sense. And if they have a good partnership for it with Tesla, for example, I think they're going to be good. And also what there opens up a new market segment, which is Tesla licensing their products out. And I think this is like the Ford partnership is the first glance at this market segment that we're going to see more and more in the next couple of 10 years. I would say, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty awesome to see that. Yeah, what's your take on that? Yeah, just to agree.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's the partnership is the beginning of it opens a lot of doors, and I'm curious to see what other automakers are going to step up to the plate and take on the NACS standard, the Tesla plug in the United States.
Fingers crossed.
And I would expect every automaker to be an NACS by the end of the decade. I really think so.
I hope,
in the United States at least. It's just it's a no-brainer. Like why would you not equip your car to take advantage of the best charging network? That's like stupid. At that point, you're just being super stubborn and dumb. So, and that's the second biggest thing people look for when buying an EV outside of cost. First, they look at affordability, then they look at charging. And so, if you don't offer the best charging infrastructure, you're an idiot. You're just a bad company. So, I expect every company to do that by the end of the decade. Yeah, I agree. And then whatever other partnerships come up, software, maybe hardware, drivetrain, battery, maybe supply chain partnerships, maybe raw material partnerships. So much can come out from that. And the fact that the door has been open with Ford and Elon Musk has come out on Twitter and said, hey, we're willing to help anyone in any way we can. I mean, that sets the stage for a lot of this to come to fruition.
Absolutely. And for the end of the episode, I have the last clip, which is very interesting because there Jim Farley talks about the competition, and that's where I wanted to end this episode because, listen for yourself.
Our main competition in the pure electric space is going to be BYD and Geely and Tesla. I mean, that's our competition. It's not General Motors. It's not going to be BMW or Volkswagen.
Absolutely. I can really sign this right away. What are your thoughts on this?
So the bigger thing that he said here that he said without saying is that he thinks that his competition are the EV only manufacturers or, predominantly EV because BYD still makes gas cars, but they're really going to be all EV and not gas car companies. So that means that he expects GM, VW, whoever else he mentioned, BMW, whoever else, those are predominantly gas car companies, and those aren't competition. It's your Geelys, your BYDs, your Teslas, your EV only. So now we have, I believe, the first automaker CEO, legacy automaker CEO, indirectly saying, again, this is me putting words in his mouth, but I'm confident saying this because of how this was phrased, is that gas cars are not his competition, EVs are, which means that gas cars aren't going to be around for longer. And so now that we have yet another voice that's being added to the chorus that's saying the gas car ain't going to be around for much longer. Please transition as quickly as you can so that you can survive the next decade. So that's what I took away from that comment. What did you take away? The
most important part for me was, like you said, it's not from the internal combustion engine companies that are the competition, but especially the Chinese ones and Tesla, because I think they will take so much market share of the total EV market globally, even the car market globally. And I claim that it's about, like, Tesla could have like 30% of the market or something like this. I feel like this is realistic. Maybe the Chinese companies, because they're like maybe they're gonna reach those volumes that Tesla is doing, but I don't know. But still, BYD is very fast and accelerating now their EV production, so I could see them overtake at some point Tesla, but I think Tesla will come back then. I think Tesla will be on par with many Chinese companies, but I feel like they're gonna take maybe 40% of the market, and then we have a 20% premium segment until everybody notices, wait a second, the software sucks. We don't want to use this. And wait a second, the Tesla is much more compelling in that sense. And I think, because Tesla is an American company, I think there's where they're gonna have an edge even up the Chinese brands in that sense with software. I think because it's much more with, for example, with Steam integration and stuff like this. This is absolutely insane when you can
Right.
game on your on your Tesla and stuff like this. So let's see. And of course, the Chinese companies are more like in the space of the Chinese software companies that are also very big and also invested in gaming, but like Steam is the biggest thing you can imagine. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, and especially that VW is in competition with, which was really crazy, like for me, because of course they claim like they're gonna do everything and the big players, but I see them cracking as well soon. So yeah, but still, yeah, please go on.
Yeah, I mean that's a bummer to hear, but I agree.
Yeah.
I think the market is truly trending towards, in my opinion, this is my opinion. I think the market's trending towards the mass market electric vehicle to be dominated by, say, two brands, and my estimation says BYD and Tesla were well positioned to do that. That will have 50% plus of the market.
Yeah.
At some point, I think maybe in the next 10 years that will be the case. And then the other part of the market will be dominated by many smaller players. The folks that can't afford to go mass market. And in the mass market, you're going to have a player that's going to carry a premium and make all the profit. And then you have another player that's going to carry no premium, very thin margins, but they will flood the market. And they'll try to. Very similar to Apple and Samsung in the States, or Apple and the rest of the world when it comes to phones.
Yeah.
I really think that's where we're going. And, even though Apple has 10 to 20% total market share in the world of phones, they have like 95% of the profits. And so I fully expect Tesla to follow a very similar model in the future. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Yeah, and outside of those mass market vehicle makers, I think Ford will be one of the bigger ones in like they call it the all other category that's not mass market. And it might do really well there. But again, they're going to be a significantly smaller company than they used to be. And then we'll probably have a lot of new companies in that realm. And then companies like GM, Toyota, Volkswagen, if they're not used to being in those buckets, they will disappear. So they might exist as a different company, but they'll be a shell of their former selves. And I fully expect this to happen.
Yeah, I also agree with that, especially when like every German OEM besides VW more or less, but they also hinted at this, Audi as well. They want to cater to the premium market. Mercedes just scrapped every model they have. I mean, they're very committed to EVs now, but they're going to go to the luxury segment. So we'll see many luxury German cars. I think Mercedes does a reasonable job in what they're doing. I think they're going to stay. And I also think that this will have, like, they're going to have their market share, their smaller one with high margins. But still, when it comes to software, if they don't turn around with software, I see this as the biggest risk of because is it premium that your car picks you up when you call it? Is this premium? In my opinion, yes. So FSD is a huge deal. So of course they have level 3 autonomy in Germany now with Mercedes, with all their sensors, but from a technology perspective, I think they're going to have huge problems to update those sensors, and I think they have a huge problem to maintain the system. And I think they're going to be stuck at some level, and FSD will come from the US, exported or imported here to Europe, updated here, regulations. I mean, they're already lobbying here. Tesla's already lobbying in Europe. So they, for example, their insurance business, they are lobbying here and everything else. So they're going to broaden their push here to get FSD on the road. And I think if the Europeans go to the US and drive around with FSD, they come back to the Stone Age and realize what is happening here. Why isn't FSD available here? What's happening? And then they're going to shift, and then the Mercedes Drive Pilot isn't as good as the rest. So FSD
it's unscalable.
Ahead, I think. Yeah, I think
it's unscalable.
So. Yeah, and
it's a scale issue. I mean, that's what it really comes down to, is that the one piece of it is the software, which is all about data. And then the other piece of it is how many cars can you get on the road that can do that in every place. And Tesla has both. And when you have both, it's a compounding effect, because you've solved the road issue of navigation anywhere. And then you also solve the unit issue, because now every car that Tesla makes and has been making for the last few years can drive itself once the software gets uploaded. So it's like, okay, cool. So you're done. I mean, it's over. It's truly over. It's just no one knows it yet. But they will.
And we still sit at the sideline and just throw our arms back and just watching and analyzing. So, Farzad, thank you very much for your service here and everything you do for the Tesla community, because I think you really do a great job with your interviews, and also the Corey interviews. Really, I dived into those. They are awesome. And I hope, fingers crossed, I have Corey on someday, because he's very awesome to he's great. I really love Monroe Associates. Everybody there is like, really, they are really cool to do that. So please, everybody, follow Farzad, his channel. You already do. I know this already, so never mind. But I'm going to link his channel up here, of course. And there's only one last thing to say here. That's goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Wasn't this episode awesome? Let's accelerate the pace of innovation by subscribing to TeslaFix. It is my absolute favorite channel on the whole interwebs.